Hello again, YouTube. I'm Ephraim225, and today I have something rather different for you all. It's chess. Yes, I've been playing on chess.com recently, mostly because Mangs has been streaming chess for whatever reason, so if I get addicted to online chess, that's his fault. So I played a couple games and thought reviewing them might be interesting for a video on YouTube, so that's what I'm going to do. And if it's not interesting to watch me blunder every move, then you can let me know. So I'm rated around 950 on chess.com, which is not that high, but I'm sure it's high enough to get some interesting games out. So this first game, I am playing as black, or red. I made the pieces red because I kind of like that color. And the opponent's opening move here is going to be f4, which is not a move you see very often. Normally you'd think of opening the line for your bishops first and foremost, but this is an interesting opening move nonetheless. I decide to open the line for my bishops with d5, and then he plays knight f3. He's looking to move the knight onto the 5th rank, I believe. Or is that the file? I don't know the terminology. I'll just call them columns and rows. So the 5th row is guarded by the pawn there. You can see that it could capture on the 2 spaces that the knight can move to. So I think that's the purpose of moving that pawn first. So I develop my knight. He decides to guard the pawn with another pawn, and that opens the line for his bishop. I then move my bishop to pin the knight to the queen. That knight cannot move, otherwise I will take the queen, and that would be very bad. Of course, it's very easy to kick the bishop away, but I am thinking of trading the knight for the bishop because I really hate enemy knights and will do anything to get rid of them. So trading them for the bishops is worth it to me. And he moves his pawn forward. Might have been better to move the bishop first and foremost and do the same thing that I did to him. You can see that this line here is something that chess.com does. When you review games, the bot will suggest better moves to play. And the bot is not always 100% perfect in my opinion. I think this is a weaker bot than is available on the site, but I'll just commentate on whatever it decides to suggest. So I move my knight here. I'm thinking of moving it to e4 later. That's a very good position for it. It's not a guarded position at all. In fact, my pawn is guarding that spot. And he decides to try and kick the bishop by moving to h3 with his pawn. And this is what I was talking about. If I try to move the bishop away to keep it safe, there's not going to be much point to that. Eventually he can trap the bishop completely anyways. So I instead decide to trade pieces. And whenever you trade pieces like this, even if the material is equal, the resulting position is also very important. So you can see that he's got his queen out now. So that might be important later. I move my pawn forward to open the line for the other bishop. He does that. The bot doesn't think it's a very good move. The bot would rather he develop his knight. Something that I've noticed about this bot is that it seems to value advancing the game position or getting something done with every move, which is a pretty good philosophy. But I'm sure he's trying something with this pawn. I just don't think it's doing a whole lot at once. If I capture, then yeah, I don't know. I'm just not seeing it myself, honestly. So I decide to give check, which is probably not a good idea, because it's very easy to defend the king and maybe also put the bishop in danger as well. But I'm thinking that if something tries to go after the bishop, the knight is guarding it, and I also could have maybe moved the knight to that spot. And that would have threatened a very common fork, actually, because I'll show it right now. If I have the knight in this position and he decides to, I don't know, do something weird, then this fork is very common in the early stages of the game. The king is in check, so it has to move, and I can just take the rook very, very safely. So that's a good thing to threaten. So instead, I give check with the bishop. He blocks with his bishop. The bot is suggesting blocking with the knight. I guess that's fine, too. And I next decide to take with the bishop, which I recognize is not a very good move, because I could have moved the knight into this spot. The queen wouldn't be able to capture it without the pawn capturing back. So now that the pawn has moved off this space, now there's nothing blocking. Now there's nothing stopping the queen from capturing the knight if I move it there. So that was maybe not the best plan. I would have threatened the bishop, which the king can't recapture back because the bishop is pinning this bishop. So he next decides to retake the pawn with the bishop, which is fine. In fact, this trade has also resulted in the bishop being in a better position. So I decide to castle. Castling is something that you basically do when you want to pass a move. You want to still do something while giving your opponent a chance to do something you can react to. Or you can also castle offensively too, but this is a very defensive move. So, bishop goes here. I guess that's fine if you want to trade the knight for the bishop later, but you're not really doing a whole lot with that. And I decide to trade the bishops. His knight recaptures. Then I move my knight there, which I probably should have done earlier. Bot recommends putting the knight back. Not really sure why. And then this happens. This is a free pawn. You take the pawn and your queen is not in immediate danger, but yeah, the bot agrees with me. This is not a good play because if I move the rook to b1, you're basically at least losing the bishop no matter what. Because let's say this pawn is also free, but then I take your bishop, and then, you know, you're down a couple pieces, and you haven't really done a whole lot. The king's not even over here, so you're not threatening him either. So, I did not do that immediately, actually. I do eventually play the rook here, but not right away. I instead go for the fork that I was talking about. So the king moves off. I capture the rook. Rook captures back. Maybe not worth it that much. Like, sure, I captured the rook there, but I did give up a knight to do it, and those rooks weren't very active anyways. So after that, I play the threat against the queen that I mentioned. Queen goes here. The bot suggests going to c6 instead, which is probably a good thing, because then the queen and the bishop are covering each other better, and they're doing a lot more than they are in this corner. And I move my queen here. The bot says this is a bad play, and I agree. Because what you can do is that you can take the bishop here. And now your queen's under attack, so you got to get it out of the way, but there's not really a lot of safe spots. You can give check, but the bishop is going to come back here, and now your queen has to go somewhere else, and it's not really that fun. Very painful moves to have to play. So, yeah, he also had the same idea of threatening the queen, but he put the bishop here, because now when I give check... Oh, I can also give check this way as well. And this is really good. Free pawn. He has to do something about it. King goes to here, which is probably okay. And then I take this pawn, which is also free. And the queen moves there. Bot says that's fine. He needs to defend this knight. That's very important right now. So next I move the knight here. It would definitely have been better if I had played here, because the king can't really capture this, because that'd be putting himself in check. And if the knight takes, then I can just instantly win the game by going to c2, is it? Yeah, it's c2. That would be an instant win for me. So knight goes there instead, which the bot thinks it's fine. And we trade. And then he moves his pawn. The queen really needs to be defending the king at this point, I think. So what I do next is... What did I do next? I don't really see what I'm doing with that pawn move. I'm defending the undefended pawn, but if the queen takes it, then, like, the queen's... Well, actually, it's already defended by the queen. My queen, so what do I care? He moves his rook here. You're not really accomplishing much with that move. I know this rook is being defended by the knight, but if the knight moves away, your king is very open in this position. So I decide to trade the rooks. Maybe not the best plan. I actually missed something here. I could have played the queen here, and this is check, and if the king moves out of the way, I just scored a free knight, basically, because if he does move out of the way, not there. If he moves here, for example, take, and boom. But he's not going to do that. What he would actually want to do is defend with a pawn, and then there's some sequence of moves here that would result in me winning more material. But that's not what I played. I instead traded the rooks. Then I played that instead. I could have gone to the middle spot here because it's guarded by the pawn, and that would have won me the knight as well, I think. Let's check that out as a matter of fact. So you can only go to one of these two spots, and I definitely win the knight. So that would have been the better play. No, I go to there for some reason. I really have no idea what I'm thinking at this point. So the king moves there to defend the knight. Now I can't take it for free. Move the rook to get it to a better position. Probably could have given check first. That would have kept me in... it would have allowed me to keep the initiative. but I'm still ahead at the moment. And taking the queen there was not a good idea. That actually wins the game for me, because I can play this. He has to move. I can play this too. And after that, it's over. Or is it not over yet? Oh yeah, one more move and then it's over. Okay. So, yeah, that's the game. I think instead of moving the queen to that position, what does the bot think he should have done? Oh yeah, he could have attacked the queen with a knight, and then the game would have continued for there. So that's the first game, and I will be back with another one in just a couple of minutes. Alright, I'm back with the second game for this video. I'm going to review the game that I played with Mangs on Sunday during his stream. I'm going to be playing white, and Mangs is going to be playing the red pieces, which is interesting because he's got an icon with a red armor knight, and I've got an icon with a blue armor knight, Doga from FE1 to be precise. So we kind of got the red knight versus blue knight thing going on. Unfortunately, my pieces are not blue. Chess.com, if you're watching this, make a chess set with red pieces versus blue pieces. It'll be really fun. Anyways, I open with e4, very basic opening. He responds with e5, also very basic. I attack his pawn with a knight. He defends with his other pawn. I move my other knight forward. And the bot doesn't really like this move. I can kind of see why. I know Mangs is trying to get his bishop to come out this way because he blocked it coming out this way, but he should probably be developing his other pieces, at least according to the bot. As I said, this bot likes to move the game state forward as quickly as possible, in my opinion. So that's what I decide to do. I develop my bishop, his knight moves forward, and then the bot doesn't like this move very much either. It blocks this bishop from coming back, but it does open the line for this bishop, which I like to do. And he moves his bishop to that position. I should probably study more to understand why the bot likes that move, but it is fine, I suppose. And then I pin his knight to the queen. There's going to be a lot of pinning in this game, I think, as there often is when it comes to Mangs. Funny jokes. There are so many like weird turns in chess that just get funny if you think about them too much. Anyways, he castles, which is fine. And I decide to trade off the knight for my bishop. I like to get rid of the enemy knights, as I mentioned. And I move my knight to attack the bishop. And he threatens my knight. So I decide to trade my knight with his bishop. I mean, I don't like moving back after getting kicked, so I decide to just do this anyways. And then I decide to castle. He moves his bishop to pin my knight to my queen, kind of returning the favor here, aren't you? So, the bot doesn't like this move very much because it's not doing a whole lot, but I wanted to get my queen unpinned, and I also wanted it to be able to attack these diagonals. So, Mangs is of course going to trade, and this results in a very bad position for me. You can see the benefits of trading if it gives your opponent worse positions to work with, because this column is now open, the king can be attacked, and, Mangs can do something with that if he's able to. We'll see if he does, though. Instead, he decides to take the pawn for now, because it is a free pawn, so he's technically ahead at this point in the game, as far as material goes. I decide to move the queen forward into a position where it's more active, and I can do a lot of things this deep into the enemy territory. Our queens are being very aggressive in this game. I kind of like it. So he kicks my bishop, and this time I decide to move it back because there's no good trade to make. And then he moves his knight forward, preparing to move it to c5 to attack the bishop, no doubt. I decide to move my rook to e1, which will get it out of that corner where it's not really doing anything. It can actually get it into the part of the board where all the action is. There's a lot of action concentrated on this right side. And he does attack the bishop, as mentioned. And at this point I decide, if he wants to take the bishop, I'll let him do it on his terms, because if the pawn structure over here gets ruined, there's not really much that's terrible about that, because all the action is on the right side. So I decide to attack the queen to get it to move somewhere else. He decides to offer a queen trade, which even the bot thinks this is weird. No way would I trade queens with you, Mangs. And I could make another joke, but instead I'm just going to move here, which the bot didn't think was very good either. I mean, I just decided to reject the trade. I didn't really do anything else with this move, I suppose. And then Mangs does this. This is probably his biggest mistake of the match. I'm stealing a phrase from him. So the thing is, he noticed that his pawn on d6 here was under attack, so he decided to defend it, but this was not the way he wanted to do it. Because as you can imagine, if you saw the stream, you know what's coming. One audience member dubbed this the Carrot Cake Wumbo Combo 2000, which is so awesome, but it's also kind of silly. But, it works. So here's what happened. Bishop takes on f7, and the king is now in check. The only move is to take back with a rook, and that unfortunately leaves this rook undefended, so the queen will take it with check again, so he has to get out of the way. And I think the better play would have been to block with a rook. Because if you block with a rook instead, I certainly can't take it back, but then again, I suppose, I would have this semi-fork, basically, when I take the pawn back, because I have both the knight and rook under attack, so it could get weird later. But he moves his king instead, which the bot thinks is also fine, and I decide to take the pawn because the pawn he was trying so hard to defend is now free anyways. What happens next? He plays a good move. This allows him to get a tempo. I have to block with the rook, which also threatens the queen. So he has to move the queen somewhere else as well. That was not the position you wanted to move to. I am sorry. What you should have done was offer another queen trade, as the bot is suggesting. Because then I can just take the knight for free now. In fact, not only can I take the knight for free, I can take this pawn with check. The king has to move. And in that position, I can also take the knight with check. So he has to move again. And at this point, he resigned because he was just losing so much material. What is my next play if he decides to move? Let's see what the bot is suggesting I play. It says king to g8. And in that position, I would probably just take another pawn. It's free. And then the game would have continued from there, but with two rooks and a queen against a queen and a rook, it's not looking good for him. And I have 7 pawns left. He didn't even take more than 2 pawns. Ah, well, that was the 9th game of the stream, though, so I think he might have been wearing down mentally just a little bit. So it was the 9th game. That's very interesting. Well, that was my game against Mangs. I'm sure he'll beat me next time. He's rated way higher than me, so... on to the next game. So, funny story, I didn't want to reveal the usernames of the people I was playing against or anything, but I think it's interesting that all 3 of these games I reviewed so far are against people with the name Magnus, either as their real name or in their username, which is kind of funny. Is every chess player going to name themselves Magnus from now on? Alright, anyways, I chose this game because of the opening that was used in particular. I wanted to talk about this particular opening. I do not like this opening. I open with e4. I'm playing white, by the way. I open with e4, and then we get d5, and then e takes d5, and then queen takes d5. This is the Scandinavian defense. I know it's a very popular opening because Ron Weasley played it in the Harry Potter movie, but I don't like this opening very much at all because the queen is now in the middle of the board and completely defenseless. I forgot to mention in the previous game review that this would make a very good chess proverb. Goes like this. Your wife is not a weakling, but she can't do everything by herself. There you go. And that very much applies to the queen here. So I'm going to play knight to c3 to attack the queen and force it to move. And, it has to move out of the way, of course, because otherwise you'd be giving up the best piece on the board. Anyways, queen decides to move and give check. I'm not really losing a tempo here because I can just move the bishop, and that's a decent development for the bishop. It's got places it can go. So he next decides to move the knight forward. And the bot recommends moving the queen off to the right a little bit. I'm not sure why, but... oh, probably to attack the free pawn on g2. Anyways, I move my knight forward. And then the queen moves here. And then I decide to castle, which in this particular spot is actually a really bad play because it causes the g-pawn to be pinned to the king, and that's actually pretty important because the bishop could come all the way down here if it wanted to. And I wouldn't be able to do anything about it except maybe move the king out of the way, but... by that point, there would just be so much weird stuff that black can do in that spot. So castling was definitely an error. Anyways, moving on with the game, he moves the knight forward. The bot really wants him to do the thing I just mentioned. So it's going to complain about that every so often. It's a really pushy bot, if you ask me. So I attack the queen. Queen moves out of the way. Again, the bot wants it to go to the H file so that it can take advantage of the pawn in the back there. But that would actually unpin the pawn, so maybe it's just attacking the knight and pinning it to my queen. And I decide to kick the queen. It has to move back. Probably could have gone over to the left, as the bot says. Then I move the rook to attack again. And the queen has to move again. See, this is the problem with having your queen out so early. You just have to spend so many moves defending it because it's such a really great piece that you don't want to throw it away that easily. Unless it's worth it. So I decide to move my bishop up to ready a knight trade, as you have seen me do 2 times so far. And he decides to try and kick the bishop. Nope, I'm just going to trade off my bishop for his knight. Queen takes back. Then I move the pawn to get ready to develop the other bishop and probably do the same thing. The bot is suggesting that I attack the queen with a knight, which I can also do. Then the knight moves off to the right here, which the bot thinks is not a good play. You're not really doing anything interesting by playing there, to be honest. Like, you're getting the knight away from the action, and there's a bunch of other moves that could have been made that are much better. Anyways, my knight moves forward to attack the queen again. And probably a questionable position to put the queen in, but he's probably looking at that f2 pawn, thinking about doing something with it later. Which, unfortunately, isn't really worth it because I can now take that knight for free. If the queen takes my knight, then I'll just take his queen. And then he moves this pawn forward, which now you're just blocking the bishop, so I don't really get the moves from this particular opponent. And I move my bishop to attack the queen, but the bot doesn't like this move because I'm ignoring a free pawn. I can actually take this pawn for free because of the knight here. And the knight is still being defended by the rook, which, by placing the bishop here, it's no longer defended by the rook. He's still not going to take it because my queen is there, but he is going to kick my queen, so bit of a missed opportunity by me. I'm going to move my queen into a better position. And, yeah, I don't know why you're attacking the queen like that. That's basically giving me a free pawn. And at that point, he surrendered. So, I guess he didn't see a way out of this, because I am up by 1 knight / bishop. So, I guess he got frustrated with that opening, and I would have too. Alright then, so that's all the games that I wanted to review for this video. This is the first time I've ever done a chess vlog on my channel, and if you liked it, let me know in the comments, or let me know on how I could improve. And you can always call me out on making a bad move or saying something that isn't really accurate, because I did all of this unscripted, so I'm bound to have made an error at some point. So please let me know. Thank you for the watching, and maybe I'll be back with more reviews as I play more games on chess.com. See you later.